Hey everyone, Art Burns here, wishing you well today. I hope you're all having a great day. And as I like to say, I hope the day is treating you well, but I hope that you are treating you well. And what I mean by that is that I hope that you're showing yourself a bit of compassion, right? Compassion to me is an essential part of the work that I do. It's an essential part of the work that my clients do to realize their ability to be free from stress and to rise above the stress and the emotional turmoil that gets in the way of their happiness and in the way of their productivity. That's where it lies. And to me, compassion is just one of three main sort of ingredients or sort of essences that we need to live a happy and fulfilled and emotionally balanced life. The other two are presence and acceptance. So what I mean by that is that when we can be present with what we're doing, like there's plenty of research that shows that when we are present, we are happy, right? It's not that we're present because we're happy. It's we're happy because we're present, right? And so when we can be present, we can be really in tune with what's happening in our experience right at the moment, and that will lead to our happiness. And then as we can accept what is arising in any given moment, right? At least temporarily. It doesn't mean that we can't change things. It doesn't mean that we can't make adjustments and course corrections. But if we can accept it, at least for right now, what is happening. And then when we can allow ourselves to be led by compassion, allow our hearts to lead our compassion. And what that means is to just simply have just an essence of kind intention towards the rest of the world. Again, this is not a spiritual concept, right? This is something that is very well founded in neuroscience. Hard-nosed neuroscientific research shows that this is absolutely true, that the more we can, practice kindness, the more that we can, kind of, again, lead our hearts with the intention that we want others to be free from suffering, and we want ourselves to be free from suffering, right? That is, again, a very basis of our ability to be happy and a basis of our own mental and emotional and physical well-being, and I'm going to explain what I mean by that in a second. But there's a notion put forth through neuroscientists and hard-nosed neuroscientists, right? Like, not a spiritual concept, but the concept that we are come into this world with a basic innate sense of goodness, of kindness, of compassion, of cooperation, of sharing, of contributive energy, right? As opposed to retributive energy, and as opposed to selfishness, and as opposed to conflict. Our inner nature is really all about kindness and cooperation and compassion, and so when we can practice compassion, that is when we get aligned with our true inner nature as humans, and that's when we're aligned with our true inner nature as humans, that's when great things become possible for us. So what is compassion again, right? Compassion is the intention to wish for the well-being of others, or more specifically, to wish for the end of suffering of others, right? The word compassion, the Latin root of the word compassion is compassus, which means to suffer with, right? So the idea is that when we practice compassion, when we have a notion or an intention of compassion, what we're doing is we're allowing we're understanding first that everyone has the potential to suffer, right? That we all go through things that make us suffer, but more importantly, we're hoping and we're intending for the relief of that suffering, right? And now let me tell you how self-compassion and compassion are really the same thing. They're really kind of two sides of the same coin, if you will, right? A lot of times, people, oftentimes when I talk about compassion, whether it's compassion directed towards yourself or compassion directed towards others, people, number one, feel like, well, how important can that be? Like, it doesn't matter if I'm a nice person. Yeah, I get it. Nice guys finish last and all that kind of stuff. First of all, that's not true, right? There's been many studies shown that actually, being kind is actually something that enhances your ability. If you think about the people who've done the greatest things in their lives, right? They are known for altruism and for kindness in their lives, right? And so that's a notion that I don't know where that came from. This whole notion of nice guys finish last, right? But it's not true. right? But oftentimes people even think about compassion for themselves, and they think about, well, if I don't criticize myself, and if I don't, hold myself to these higher sort of, standards and these higher expectations, and if I don't really, punish myself when I don't reach those expectations or, meet those standards, well, then I'm going to fall behind, and I'm not going to accomplish the things that I accomplish in my life, or that I want to accomplish in my life. And sure, to a certain degree, that's true. I mean, you do need to sort of have standards for yourself. You need to kind of, set goals and kind of, have a certain self-critical nature about, when you're not reaching the goals, or else, yeah, I mean, maybe we'll just all sit around watching TV and eating ice cream, and that's not going to be, meeting the goals that we want to meet. But there's a difference between being critical and being like, mean about the criticism, right? And being like judging and being, cruel about it, right? And that, okay, there's lots of studies, again, lots of information, lots of research out there that is showing that the more kind we are in our criticisms of ourselves, right? The more that we are trying to relieve our own suffering, the better off we are, right? The more eventually the more motivated we're going to be, right? So again, like just like the nice guys finish last, a lot of the research is showing that these traditional concepts that we have are just not true, right? And so let's talk about, though, again, getting back to that sort of just general compassion that we feel towards others, right? So a lot of times people, if I can convince them that compassion is important, right? And it doesn't take that much, I mean, showing a little bit of the research and science behind it, people get it, and that's cool. But oftentimes there's like a point at which people say like, okay, yeah, sure, I can feel compassion for all these people, but not for that person, right? Like I cannot, feel compassion for that person because of what that person's done to me. I refuse to do it, right? So now that gets into a really interesting sort of a sort of confluence of where the self-compassion and the outer compassion kind of, mesh together and how they inform each other, right? Because remember, compassion is the desire for the end of suffering. That's like kind of the easiest way to talk about it, right? Like that's what we want when we practice compassion. We want for, the end of suffering, right? Whether that's for ourselves or for someone else, right? So now, physically speaking, right, biologically speaking, when we feel that notion about someone else, and we feel that, oh, no, I can't forgive that person, I can't allow that person to have my compassion because of what that person's done to me, right? That's a sense of non-forgiving, right? If you want to call it, like colloquially that would be called, holding a grudge, right? And as we're holding a grudge for someone, and again, this is well-founded research, okay, physical biological research has shown that when we're feeling that way, right? Like when we think of someone and we think that, oh no, I cannot let that person have my compassion because of something they've done to me, right? I will not forgive them. I will not allow myself to feel that love for them, right? Or that wanting for them to be free from suffering. Like I won't feel that. I refuse. When we do that, the same response in our body as the stress response, or I should say that is the stress response, right? Because you're kind of dwelling in this fear of somehow being taken advantage of, or somehow not getting that upper hand, or somehow losing, right? And so that fear is the same fear that's involved with the fight or flight response, and the same physical reaction in your body is going to happen, right? And namely, what I'm talking about is cortisol levels, right? The cortisol, again, this has been shown in many, many different studies. They took people who, the people who have been, wronged, right? And they had a certain, one group of people, just convinced them to just even consider forgiveness for people, right? Whether whether they actually forgive them or not is not even relevant, right? Like, and you can still consider like suing them or pressing charges against them, whatever you have to do, but just consider, letting go of that, allowing yourself to feel that forgiveness and that, wanting for them to be free from their suffering, right? Just doing that, right? And the experiment group and the control group, right, where the control group would say, no, I'm still not doing it, right? They found that the control group, who refused to offer that compassion towards people who have done them wrong, actually had higher levels of cortisol in their body. So, and what happens is, every time you think of that, right, like if you're considering this, if you're taking this stance of refusing to offer someone compassion because of something they've done to you, every time you think of that person or that thing that happened, you're going to release more cortisol into your body, right? And that's going to make your blood pressure, your heart rate, your respiratory system, your digestive system, your lymphatic system, your reproductive system, all of these things, your immune system, all of these things are going to be out of whack. You're going to be in a state of hyperarousal. And because of the way the human mind works, right, and the human physical brain and the mind, you're likely to think about that thing 30, 40 times a day easily, right? So what you're doing is, by denying that compassion for that person, what you're doing is you're bringing harm to yourself, right? Now remember, let's bring it back, right? What is compassion? Compassion is the desire for the end of suffering, right, and the end of harm, right? And so by not offering that compassion to someone out there, you're causing the harm to yourself, and therefore you're not allowing yourself to feel compassion for yourself. So this is where you can see that it becomes a cyclical kind of thing, right? Like, if we can allow ourselves to feel compassion even towards those people who have done things to us that have harmed us, even people who have deliberately harmed us, right? If we can still offer them compassion, we're actually helping ourselves, right? We're actually showing our self-compassion, and in that sense, then we're getting into this, again, very, very well-founded research is showing that the more we can feel that compassion for ourselves, the more that stress response that we're feeling does not hold us back from the things that we want to do. So we'll actually be more successful as a result of showing this perceived weakness by showing compassion to somebody who's hurt us, right? And so there's some really great practices, okay? And when we do these practices, what we do is we use certain people in our lives, right, to really, direct this compassion towards. Okay, we always start with ourselves, right, because we want to really try to remember and always remind ourselves to be kind to ourselves and to want the kindness for ourselves, right? But then we go to someone who is very easy to express compassion for, right? Somebody who's, like somebody easy to love, a family member, a spouse, a child of yours, a hero in the world, like your favorite rock star, whatever, somebody very easy to love, right? And then you go to somebody neutral, like a cashier at a store that you go to that you barely know them, but you know their face, you say, hi, how are you? And that's it, right? So somebody doesn't represent good or bad emotions, just, somebody in the world who you know. Then you wish the compassion for that. And then you go for that person who is hard to love, is hard to express the compassion for. You go to that person who is the one who is, like somebody who's done really bad things. Maybe even a public figure who's done horrible, horrible things in the world, and somebody who you find absolutely reprehensible. You wish that person compassion anyway. And this is the practice, okay? Now, if you'd like to learn how to do that practice, okay, and there's multiple different ways to do it too. Like, you can do it everywhere from a formal meditation to just pausing for various times in the day and just doing this for a couple of minutes, right? There's just various ways to do it, and I would love to get you into it because, again, the research shows that this is one of the most important things that we can do, not just so that people think we're a nice person, not just because, it'll make us seem more zen or something like that, but actually for our own well-being, our own emotional, mental, and physical health. right? Which when we have better emotional, mental, and physical health, guess what? We're going to be more successful. We're going to be more successful as parents. We're going to be more successful as, in whatever job we have. We're going to be more successful in, whatever interactions we're having with anybody in the world are going to be more, fruitful and more balanced and more successful. All right. Thanks for listening. I wish you well, and I would love to help you learn some of these practices. So hit me up, okay? Send me a direct message, drop a comment below, reply to this email, go to my website, artburnscoaching.com, get the link to get in touch with me there. Let's get into a conversation. I believe me, all of my clients, every one of my clients works on compassion at some point. And I wait until the middle of the course because it's not something that, when we start off with that, people are like, I don't know, this doesn't really seem to matter. But in the end, people come back more than anything else. People come back and talk about the compassion exercises as that which made the biggest difference in their work and in their lives. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Take care. I wish you well.